Welcome to our February 1st Lunch and Learn offering. The topic is immigration. I'm Deacon Kent Ferris with the Social Action Office here in the Diocese of Davenport. I will introduce our guests, but first we'll begin in prayer. This actually comes from the message of His Holiness Pope Francis for the 109th World Day of Migrants and Refugees, which was September 24th of 2023. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, Father Almighty, grant us the grace to work tirelessly for justice, solidarity, and peace, so that all your children may enjoy the freedom to choose whether to migrate or to stay. Grant us the courage to denounce all the horrors of our world and to combat every injustice that mars the beauty of your children and the harmony of our common home. Sustain us by the power of your Spirit so that we can reflect your tender love to every migrant who you place in our path, and to spread in hearts and in every situation the culture of encounter and of care. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The Iowa Migrant and Movement for Justice. A bit about the background of the organization. In the face of unprecedented need, Iowa MMJ is building off of a long legacy of two trusted organizations. The Uniting of American Friends Service Committee Iowa and Iowa Justice for Our Neighbors programs creates a powerful opportunity to meet urgent needs for direct services while building a stronger movement for immigrants' rights in the state and in the region. Iowa MMJ's diverse staff have a combined 35 years in legal services and 15 programming years experience, and are building on a combined 45-year reputation from the parent organizations. The unique dual program model of Iowa MMJ has the capacity to fill unmet needs, build on existing relationships, including those with our diocese, continue to lead, work in coalition with solidarity with others, and win concrete victories for all communities in our state. Iowa MMJ is an affiliate of the Immigration Law and Justice Network, formerly known as Justice for Our Neighbors Network. And with us today is Erica Johnson. Erica has been working for positive changes in immigration policy at the local, state, and federal level since 2006. Originally from Iowa, Erica is the founding executive director of the Iowa Migrant Movement for Justice. And before turning the microphone to Erica, I also want to introduce our second speaker. The Catholic Campaign for Human Development, known as CCHD, the anti-poverty program of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, named Father Guillermo Treviño Jr. of the Diocese of Davenport as the recipient of the 2022 Cardinal Bernardin New Leadership Award. Each year, this prestigious award from the CCHD recognizes a young adult between the ages of 18 and 40 who demonstrates leadership in fighting poverty and injustice in the United States through community-based solutions. Father Guillermo is the pastor of twin Hispanic parishes, St. Joseph, West Liberty, St. Joseph, Columbus Junction, and chaplain and co-chair of Escucha Mi Voz, Iowa, a faith-based community organization in Iowa City. With Escucha Mi Voz, which means listen to my voice, Father Guillermo played a key role in accompanying parish leaders and community members to fight for and win millions of dollars in pandemic relief for thousands of essential and excluded immigrant workers in eastern Iowa. As a Catholic priest serving rural Hispanic Catholics who live and work in agriculture and meatpacking, Father Guillermo did more than provide spiritual relief to parishioners hard hit by the pandemic. He helped meatpacking plant workers find their own voice, identify issues impacting their lives, and take effective action to address them, including by contacting government and corporate decision makers. Father Guillermo brings a unique perspective and understanding to his ministry. He knows firsthand the daily struggles of the immigrant families he's served since his own father was deported 12 times, sees his role as one of empowerment, helping lay people become leaders in both the parish and the community as an expression of their dignity as children of God. Father Guillermo also received the Iowa State Blessed Father McGivney Award from the Knights of Columbus for his devoted care as a parish priest and exemplar of Christian charity and builder of Catholic fraternity and a role model to his parish. Loxie Hopkins, who's part of our office team, is the one who led the charge to get these two to be able to join us today. And having read those introductions, I think you can begin to appreciate the value that they have and the voice they bring. Without further ado, I turn the microphone over to Erica Johnson.
Thanks, Kent. Wow, it was an honor to be here with you all. Thank you for that introduction. That was a lot. It is really good to be with you. I have to confess, sort of at the get-go, that it's been a bit of a crazy week here in Des Moines. As I'm sure some of you are aware, I'll probably talk quite a bit about that. So if I'm scattered, that's my excuse. But here's what I plan to kind of talk a little bit about sort of this moment in Iowa where we find ourselves and kind of like how we got here, the different patterns that we're seeing. I am going to spend a bit of time, maybe the most time, talking about the legislative session, because that's really the most urgent thing right now. And then close by talking about the actions that we can be taking. So I'll share resources in the chat. We've got a Google Drive where we're kind of collecting information, directing people to. So as I go, please do feel free to interrupt with questions. It's good to be in the space with folks that some I recognize, some I don't. Appreciate you all taking time. It is a really important topic. Immigration is in the headlines pretty much always. And recently it's been in the headlines a lot, not just because of what's going on at the southern border, but also because it's an election year. And when it's an election year, we see this pattern, presidential election year, we see this pattern that immigration comes up as a topic because people feel passionately about it, like Kent was saying at the beginning. And this is a pattern that isn't, one that we see just in recent history. This goes way back to the very beginnings of our country, where people who had decided to migrate, to move from their home countries, 200 years ago, were arrived and faced challenges, barriers are put up in front of them, and each new wave of immigrants has seen those type of barriers and have overcome them, and are resilient. And the same is true about where we're finding ourselves now. So we could have a whole session on the history of immigration in the US and the push and pull factors that that drive people to migrate, but we're not going to do that today. We don't have time, but we could. We could set that up for another time if you want. We've got a great training on that. But all of that to say is that migration is a fact of life. It always has been, and that's why we believe that migration is a human right, and we fight for that right. And so Iowa MMJ, as Kent said, does that by providing immigration legal services and doing advocacy and organizing. And so right now, one of the things that we're seeing is the heightened attention because of what's happening at the border and our government's inability and refusal and failure to create a system that allows for people to migrate with dignity, and a system that acknowledges our needs as a country, as an economy, as a workforce, all of these things, that keeps families together, all of these things. So what we see is a lot of reporting, and people reacting to that. And in Iowa, we have lots of groups who are really interested in helping and supporting folks arriving at the border and people who are here in Iowa, and we appreciate that. And that's great. In terms of legislature, I'm going to shift pretty quickly to talk about that because it's most pressing and where my mind is, frankly. So the legislative session started at the beginning of January, for folks who might know, and we are at the point now where we have seen bills be introduced and are starting to kind of go through the process as we come up to the funnel date. So it's all sort of built literally like as a funnel, right? Where a lot of things come in and then they're all sort of winnowed down so that there's just a few bills that are taken up then later on in the session. And so so what we have seen is exactly what we anticipated because of what I said earlier. So we have been meeting as a state kind of coalition that talks about things interesting to advocates around the state and immigrant refugee communities around the state at least monthly for probably the last 10 years, maybe 12 years. I don't know, a long time. That's how long, that's how I know Kent and Loxie, because we have been really intentional about building relationships with each other because we've had to, because of the raids in Marshalltown, because of the raids in Postville, because of the raids in Mount Pleasant, because of the attacks that we have seen against immigrants and refugees in our communities. And so, so we have been meeting to talk about the legislative session this year since the summer because we anticipated that because of the politics that this was going to be a year that we were going to see some anti-immigrant attacks at the State House. And so last week we started to see that indeed was what was happening. So so what we have seen are 3 bills. Sharing screen, sorry, takes me a second to remember how to work Zoom every time. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is the Google Drive that I will share in the chat here in a second. You can see that, right? 4 folders and a couple of documents.
Yes.
Perfect. So what I'm going to show you is are some graphics that we've made because it's probably the simplest way to kind of run through what these bills are. So bear with me. So the first one is called Senate File 108. It did have a companion bill in the House called House Study Bill, HSB 105. That bill, the House version, died in subcommittee yesterday, so we need to update this graphic and take that off. But this bill is an anti-worker bill that would require Iowa businesses to use the E-Verify program and would block the employment of undocumented folks. And so so this bill is nothing new. We have seen a version of this bill come up since 2007, as far as I'm aware of. And each year it's introduced by Senator Garrett, who represents the kind of southern suburbs of Des Moines, Waukee, and Indianola, and Knoxville. And he is somebody who has really kind of staked his claim on being anti-immigrant. I don't know if folks remember the Minutemen group. The Minutemen are a group that's been classified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a nativist extremist group. And the last time they had a annual convention, Senator Garrett was their speaker. He went to Pizza Ranch and spoke at their annual convention in 2017. So he brings this bill up every year, and every year the business community has been really influential and successfully stopped this bill from advancing, which is great. We'll take partners where we can get them. The business community isn't always one that we agree with. How they treat workers in meatpacking plants, for example, would be an area where we don't agree. But they've been an ally on this program, and for that we're super grateful. So this bill, it goes a little further than what it has in the past. It has 2 parts, 2 pieces. The second part is the E-Verify program, which would mandate that all E-Verify is a program that businesses can use to verify the work authorization status, the employability that a person is authorized to work in the United States. The E-Verify program has always been a program that is tough for people to stomach, for business owners to stomach, because it's really unreliable. It brings back a lot of false negatives and false positives that mean that people, both workers and business owners, have to do a lot of extra work to get people filling positions. And so for business owners, it's something that they're not interested in because, the workforce in Iowa, like we have needs, we have spots to fill, and businesses want to be able to hire people quickly. And this is a problem that puts extra steps on them. The other part of the bill would, we have a federal system that already doesn't allow undocumented workers to work. They're not authorized to work. but we have an economy that employs them in the United States, across the country, just like in Iowa. That's the truth. I know that some people don't like that, and that makes people uncomfortable, and that's okay. We could be uncomfortable with true hard things. So this bill would block employment of undocumented folks in Iowa and create a mechanism where if someone suspects in Iowa that a business is hiring an undocumented person, that they can report them to the Department of Workforce Development, and then that business would potentially lose their license. So this bill is an anti-worker bill. It passed out of the Senate subcommittee last week, and will likely see a Senate committee, Judiciary Committee hearing next week or the week after. Clear as mud? Perfect, I'll keep going. Okay, so what we have here, another bill. There's 3 bills that I'm gonna kind of focus on. House File 2128. This is a bill that would block longtime Iowa residents from having access to in-state tuition. So folks are maybe familiar with DACA recipients, and folks who go further back maybe remember the concept of dreamers. And maybe folks who have been involved in immigrant rights for a while remember when there was a fight for in-state tuition for dreamers in our state in, like, I don't know, 2010, maybe. I can't remember. So this is the opposite of that. So what this bill says is that people who aren't citizens, I've got it right here, people who aren't citizens or lawfully present in the United States wouldn't be qualified for in-state tuition at the Regents institutions or community colleges in our state. So this bill passed out of the committee today, this morning, unfortunately. We had, the vote was 13-7, I think, and so it was all the Democrats on the committee and 1 Republican voted against the bill, and 13 of the Republican members of the committee voted for it. And so the next step for this bill would be full House consideration at some point. And lastly, we have House File 2112. And this is a bill that also has 2 very distinct sections. The first section has to do with benefits, and it basically creates additional barriers for people who are eligible to receive public benefits, things like SNAP and Medicaid. Creates additional steps that they need to take to verify that they're eligible to receive these benefits. So let me back up on that. We know that undocumented immigrants don't qualify for public benefits. We also know that it's a really big myth that undocumented immigrants are accessing public benefits. So this bill doesn't do anything new. It just creates additional barriers for immigrants and refugees, US citizens even, to prove that they are in fact eligible to receive benefits. That's section 1. Section 2 is a smuggling provision. So federal law already defines trafficking and smuggling and creates penalties and all of that. So this bill would create a state level version of that, which other states have tried to do and have it's caused problems, litigation in other states, Kansas, Arizona, Florida, Oklahoma. And so the really concerning part about this bill is the section that says that a person could be charged with a Class C felony, which, if I remember correctly, is up to $10,000 and up to 10 years in prison for transporting a person using a motor vehicle that would encourage or induce a person to enter or remain in the United States in violation of federal law by concealing, harboring, and shielding that person from detection. So this law harkens back to some other concerning bills that are really alarming for those of us who serve immigrants, churches especially, a lot of nuns,
Yeah.
to be honest, who are living out their faith by serving undocumented folks. And they might know that they're undocumented and they're driving them to the doctors, or they're driving them to church, or they're driving their kids to school. So the way that this bill is worded is really concerning for that particular provision. And we think that it could lead to parents facing charges, or pastors facing charges, or so that's what's really concerning about this bill. So this bill also passed out of subcommittee this week and now is eligible for to see a discussion in the full committee next week or the week after. So what we have here are a package of 3 very anti-immigrant bills that attack students, that attack workers, that attack low-income families, and attack people of faith and allies who are simply living out their faith and serving people, their neighbors, their community members in need. These bills are all still alive, unfortunately. The way the legislative session works is that, like I said, it's sort of like a funnel, right? Where there's a lot of bills that are introduced and they all get winnowed down until February 16th is the date that they have to have traveled out of committee. And so for 2 of these bills, House File 2112 and Senate File 108, we expect that sometime between February 5th and February 15th, these will see action at the committee level. Should I pause? Are there questions about those? That was a lot.
I think we're okay to continue for now, Erica, if you want to.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm still sharing my screen because I think it might be helpful, because the next question is logically, what do we do, right? So tonight, for those who are interested, we are having a community meeting. It's a virtual space. People can join via Zoom, and it's a bilingual space. We were going for multilingual. Our French interpreters fell through, so we're going to have a Spanish option for those who are interested in getting the information in Spanish. And I'll drop the link for this Google Drive in the chat here in a second once I'm done yapping, so you can have all access to this. That's all lives there, so you can download these graphics and share them. This is happening tonight at 7 p.m. on Zoom, and we're going to go through and give people information about what's going on at the State House. We've been hearing from folks who are scared. We're hearing from people who are angry, everything, and people want to know what they can do. So that's the first thing people can do, is join the community meeting tonight. What's this one? This is just sort of a lead graphic. So that's what people can do right now, tonight. And then also in this Google Drive, we have put together some guides. So if you're interested and if this is what you're into, we have a couple of policy one-pagers. So these really go into the specifics about the policy and the concern. And so if this is something that you think, for example, might be helpful to send to your legislator on these bills, this is available for you. Feel free to use those. There's one for each of the bills that we're watching. In addition to the policy one-pagers, we have messaging toolkits. So whereas the documents that I just showed you are intended to be used for legislators and kind of policy wonky people, the messaging toolkits are a little bit more general audience facing. And so we have a couple of these that are also available, and we'll update these as things kind of develop. And this is where the calls to action live too, which this is kind of where I will shift to in a second. That's where we will land. So these delve more into kind of the top line talking points about why these bills are bad and why they violate the values that we hold as Iowans, the values that we hold as people of faith, the values that we hold as parents, all of these things, right? And so there's one of these messaging toolkits for each of the bills also, and they all live here. Feel free to use these. They're not, if you want to, like if it's helpful for you to have something like this that you just cut and paste and post on Facebook, or cut and put into a letter to the editor, feel free to do that. But if it's easier for you to look at this and kind of use it to wrap your head around these things, and you want to create something that's that comes more from your voice, also do that. I have also put in here a narrative change guide. So we have been working with a national organization called the Opportunity Agenda, and another organization, the University of Northern Iowa and University of Kentucky, to kind of look at how Iowans are talking about these issues. So this is a little bit separate from the specifics of the legislative session, but there's also, I wanted to include this in case it's helpful, because what we have found through our research and the messages that we have tested is that there's a couple of values, 5 that are highlighted here. The fact that Iowans value family and community and the contributions of immigrants and that we all make to our communities, and that we value a strong workforce, and we value order. These are some values that kind of work for the audiences that we're trying to move on this issue, because we do need to bring more folks to our side if we really want to advance immigrant rights. So I've included this here too. We have a whole training for just this document that we could do. I'm not going to go into that today also, but we could schedule that if that's helpful. Just a couple of other things. There's a guide for like how to call your legislator. These we are putting in Spanish also, so these will be bilingual guides. There's one for how to call your and send an email to your legislators, how to write a letter to the editor, and then how to do town hall meetings. And then lastly, as we're thinking about these things, I want to highlight our vision, because it's, for us as an organization, these are not the kind of bills that we want to see at our state house. We want to see bills that are welcoming and inclusive, and build a more prosperous future for us all, regardless of immigration status. So I've also included in the Google Drive what we call our legislative blueprint. These are things like non-specific bills, laws. These aren't necessarily introduced at the State House, but they're kind of attempting to encompass our vision of what a welcoming and inclusive Iowa actually looks like from a systems perspective. So I've included this in there too. And then I'll switch now to action, calls to action. So this is the stuff, like what can we do, Erica? So we're asking people to do 5 things, I think. Yes. So number 1 is to get involved, sign up to receive action alerts from us. We've got a WhatsApp group for those who are interested in being a part of kind of a more rapid response team. You'll get text messages. Otherwise, you could receive email updates from us. We are the second thing. The second thing is, of course, contacting your members of Congress. We have links there for how you can find your legislators. We're asking people to target the people right now at this stage on the committees and leadership. So this document even needs to be updated since it was created. And then again, like I said, there's a guide for how to call and email. And then on February 7th, we're calling for a statewide day of action. We had already planned on doing our advocacy day on February 7th. And we would like to turn that into a day of action where even if you can't come to Des Moines to the State House, that you're taking action. So this is something, if you're interested in, again, kind of sign up for emails and alerts from us on that. Number 3, attend an event. We have the February 7th Advocacy Day that I just mentioned. This is something we do every year. It's really focused on leadership development and civic engagement for people who don't know the legislative process or how a bill becomes a law or any of that. But this year we're going to make it a little bit bigger because we don't like these attacks. Town halls. Number 4, make some noise on social media. If you use social media, it's a great way to get the word out to people who are close to you, who follow you on social media. And then lastly, write an op-ed or a letter to the editor. Okay, so see if there's some questions in the chat. I'm gonna stop share and we'll do questions.
I think the first question is as it relates to your event this evening, will that also be recorded in the event that somebody's not able to get notice of it within a few hours?
Um, I don't know.
Okay,
We talked about doing that, or even like we usually do that type of event on Facebook Live.
right.
But I'm not sure. I think we're open to it and we may do that. If nothing else, we will have slides. We've got like a series of slides that we can share with folks for sure. But I will, if whoever that was, will put my email in the chat. Send me an email and we can go from there.
Another request was the information regarding the meeting tonight. So as we switch from you to Father in a second, Erica, if you can paste in that URL code
Yep,
or the code for tonight, that'd be great.
can do.
That's a lot of information, but I think part of it too really speaks to, it attests to how prepared you have been uh, within the past, since the last legislative session, and also the importance of the relationships across organizations over, the better part a decade plus, in order to be able to anticipate this. For those of you that are familiar with the Bishops' Conference offering justice for immigrants at the national level, they're at about 30,000 feet. And ultimately, they and we depend on folks who have an in the moment understanding of what's happening at any one of the state capitals. And so, very, very grateful to your ability to move very quickly on three particular pieces of legislation. For the sake of time and the fact that we're at 12:35, I'm now going to introduce or reintroduce Father Guillermo and afford him an opportunity to also talk about this particular topic in light of our faith tradition. Father Guillermo?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's big honor. I'm going to be speaking. My understanding is Escucha Mi Voz got invited to speak at the state capitol. On my calendar, I have, as far as I know, we're going to speak on it. I think it's the 12th, Monday the 12th, in Des Moines. So again, hopefully that still works out. But my understanding is Escucha Mi Voz, which I'm a part of, they've been invited to speak on that day, Monday the 12th, I believe 11 to noon. I'll have more details and Ken can email it to people if anybody wants to join us. Jesus was an immigrant. They had to flee their own tyrants of the time, Herod. And so they had to flee to Egypt. So, we have a history of that, and the church has always supported immigrants. 1800s. I've seen old priests from Philadelphia and stories and all that, and one can just notice that the church has always been on their side. So, as Catholics, as Christians, as human beings, we need to give their time and attention to them. And it's there are parishioners, they're the people that prepare our food, prepared during the pandemic. Part of why I won the award. People noticed how important the essential workers were. They had to keep working, even while the rest of us had to be at home. And my parish is predominantly Hispanic, but also meat plant workers. And both of those meat plants, were a lot of my parishioners and just fellow people. They had to keep working, and they were recognized and given by the government, regardless of legal status. They were all given a little bit of economic relief. So these people are human beings. The youth. I've been praying about what I'm going to say when if it all works out and I go to Des Moines. I wanted to say that the youth. We're supposed to be pro-life and care about the children and everything. And well, these children, through no fault of their own, they just came here with their parents, and they have a right to an education, if they meet the requirements for admission, and they lived here in Iowa most of their lives. So again, that in-state tuition. So I see that a lot. One of my good friends, he works at West Liberty Foods, undocumented, in elementary school. I was always envious of him because he was always the better student. We had a Erickson Elementary in Moline. It was him and I were always competing for the best citizenship award and best. And he won it 3 times. I won it once. And the 1 year I won is because he wasn't eligible to win 3 in a row. But an amazing man, and but he wasn't able to continue past high school because of legal status. So I wonder how things could have ended up, you know. And told him about that, and he said, "Well, it's how it is. You know, he's happy to have a job. You know, these people work really hard wherever. You know, like right now, I'm getting a new roof in the church, and you know, they're just happy for work. They're just happy to be here and give it their all. You know, they say the fastest growing businesses are Latina women, and so I see that in my parishioners right now. 5 of them are at the state tournament in wrestling. 5 Latinas from West Liberty. You know, so even in the amateur wrestling, you know, so I see these human beings. They just want to better themselves. They don't nothing else, nothing. And so I think that on the human level, human rights, that's what we all want, is for people to better themselves, you know, as they say, by the bootstraps, or you know, so that's what they're trying to do, Latino population, which I love so much, work with so much. Pope Benedict, when he spoke to United Nations, when he was the Pope, he said, "Everyone is willed, everyone is loved, everyone is necessary." And so that's been part of my inspiration. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's just because it is, everyone, you know, matters, and they're necessary, they're important, and we have to support them whatever way we can. Obviously, as a member of the clergy, I have a lot of power and influence. And I think if you can encourage your clergy members to do it, it's scary, you know, trust me, I'm scared every time I do it. You know, I'm not the best public speaker. You know, if you notice, they never quote me because I'm really not the best, but we got to try. And so I think if we encourage our clergy leaders, I spoke to the Quakers recently, and last week in West Branch, last Wednesday, they had me. I guess that's where Herbert Hoover went to church back in the day. And I accidentally went to the wrong friend's place. It and long story short, I found the correct place in West Branch, but the Quakers were very kind, and their friends that were there just discussing. I was talking about immigration, but they were scared. You know, I said, you know, they asked what, you know, what can we do, and that's the thing, when you know evil triumphs. I think that's a Martin Luther King quote: "Evil triumphs, but good people do nothing." And so it's not easy. It's not easy to stand up, but we have to, because I think that's why the anti-immigrant rhetoric keeps winning, because nobody speaks up, no one stands up to it, and we have to speak up in whatever way we can, and don't let fear stop that, because you know, strength in numbers. How do you beat a bully? Well, you fight back. You talk back to it. You know, you challenge that rhetoric, that true or not. And so, you know, I was talking to a brother priest, not related, and maybe not the best example, but we're talking about 9/11, and I was sharing my story, how my my teachers were kind of tough. Moline Public Schools, they said no, we couldn't watch the videos or anything, so I knew nothing about it. So my first footage of 9/11 was when I went to my mom's, and that evening watching the news, Democrats and Republicans both singing "God Bless America." And he challenged me. He didn't believe it. That didn't happen, not on 9/11. And so I sent him the video, and it was very powerful. And so, but that's the thing. We got to challenge the lies. We got to challenge the things that aren't true. And if not, then this rhetoric's going to continue. So, you know, as members of faith, we're called to this. We're called to holiness, and to not be afraid to stand up for our brothers and sisters that right now have no one to stand up for them.
Thank you, Father. Yeah, it's as you have been recognized for your courage to stand in solidarity. Your words today are also inspiring to us to take up a challenge and find our voice, and also join with those that could be harmed based on the 3 pieces of legislation we've seen today. So thank you. open it up for questions. You can either do so by way of Zoom, or if you want to, we can give a go at, and Loxie's got
I
her
have a
hand.
comment, Kent. I'm hoping that everyone that's on here can at least, at the very least, make a phone call on this legislation. But better yet, get hold of your friends in your parishes and ask them to also make phone calls. Imagine how this could spread, and if we really would go to work on this and start encouraging everyone in our parish to make phone calls.
Yeah, to your point, there are the things that we can do, and also the ability to share and ask others to be involved for those that are not with us over this noon hour. Yes, thank you, Loxie. I pose a question to you, Erica. You talked about the funnel. Based on your history of watching past legislative sessions, are there ever surprises? You think that something has died and then it gets attached to something later. Is that also something to watch for? Because I mean, if you're unaccustomed to watching a legislative session, you get to February 16th, it's a funnel day, you think you're free and clear. But are there moments where something can come back and be attached to something that we had not anticipated?
Yeah, I'm smirking because yeah, 100%. And I wanted to throw in earlier that I've worked really closely with Tom Chapman with Iowa Catholic Conference for decades now, and so grateful for his partnership because he's at the Capitol way more than I am. I don't know how he does it, but super appreciate that partnership. That's a very valuable partnership, and he is usually the one who reminds me because something has happened, just as you described, Kent, that the rules seem to appear out of thin air sometimes. The legislative rules. So the calendar is the calendar. The session timetable is published on the legislative website. I have it here hanging on my desk in my office. But I remember one year the funnel came and went, and I think it was Senate File 481 in 2017, the anti-sanctuary city law that Iowa passed, and that the funnel date came and went, and then suddenly I learned about a thing called the unfinished business calendar, which is where that bill got put, and it did end up passing, and it was not good. And so there, and then this week, the version of that I'll just kind of to illustrate the point is that during the subcommittee meetings that we were involved in this week, the rule was that if you didn't have a chair, you could not attend the subcommittee meeting. And so, you see, like yesterday, we saw pictures of folks who were attending some subcommittee meetings that were standing room only. That was not the case. The rule was not applied that way for us. We had to leave the room. During one of these, there was probably 30 of us inside that had seats. And then I came out afterwards, and there was probably 80 people in the hall who were interested in the bill, but they weren't allowed in the room because they didn't have a seat. And I saw one of the staffers ask the chair of the subcommittee, "Are we still doing this?" And he just kind of shrugged. And it was like, you're clearly just making up the rules as you go here. So it's a very frustrating process. Thank you for bringing that up, Kent. The rules change. Things can come up when we least expect it because of some obscure rule or made up rule.
If you are not already receiving your representative or state senator's weekly newsletter, it's also an opportunity to do so. Additionally, there was reference to town hall meetings. In the town that I live in, they're at the community college, and there's usually 4 to 6 representatives and state senators that combine based on how the districts are drawn on the map. And if you've never been to one of those are also very informative because it affords you the opportunity to hear from other people for whom issues touch them personally. And I think that's another example of where going out of one's comfort zone or doing something new is always a learning moment, going deeper and becoming a faithful citizen as our church asks us to do. Other comments or questions? comment regarding the contribution that DACA recipients have made. Yeah, I mean, just some of the brightest and most talented people who were given a bit of an opportunity and ran with it. Just an incredible group of people. There's a lot to process, but again, the timeliness of this it cannot be overstated, both by virtue of the event you're having tonight, Erica. So when Loxy, in her prophetic ways, tells me that we should consider this topic for this day, it bodes well. And so I want to thank both you and Father Guillermo for giving us the time today, the additional resources that we'll provide folks that have listened, and we'll probably flip the recording and maybe be able to get it out yet today or tomorrow, along with those resources. And before I close, I do want to mention that the March Lunch and Learn is actually Thursday, March 7th. The plan is for Julissa Govia, the CCHD student intern this academic year, to present. We have to, it may be by way of something that she pre-records. Go figure, a college student with classes, and it doesn't fit that she will be available over the noon hour on a Thursday. But her lived experience, I want to make sure we have an opportunity to hear it in advance of the conclusion of the academic year. Additionally, I would say if you have additional items, thoughts on topics for future Lunch and Learns, please let us know, as well as people that could possibly provide us speakers that we could approach. Mazahir has her hand raised. Mazahir.
Yes, I just want to ask Erica, how can like here Johnson County like partner with you to advocate for those bills? This is really important to us, and we have a lot of members here, whether at CWJs or the Immigrant Welcome Network. All of them, they will be really affected by these bills. How can we work together and to advocate for this? And I give you my email, by the way, because I'm not receiving any more your information since I stepped down from CWJ. But please add my email to your emailing list. I'm very, very interested on like advocating for this.
Yeah. Yeah, Mazahir, I wrote down your email address. I got it. Thank you. And I think, I mean, first of all, feel free to use all the materials, right? Like those, take them. There's no pride of ownership. We just want people to be sharing accurate information and mobilizing people. So take it, slap your logos on it, do what you will with the information. It was we designed it to be accurate first and foremost, and we designed it to be used. So go forth and use it. If you've got contacts in the community that you want to mobilize, please do that. This is one thing. Second of all, I think the meeting tonight was designed to create a space for people who are really unfamiliar with all of this and are scared and just have questions. And so we, like I said, we've been meeting monthly with advocates since July and August, but I understand that level of conversation is too advanced for a lot of our community members, because I mean, like it wasn't that long ago that I was like, what did I learn in my high school government class? Like, how does the bill become a law? And I is someone who grew up in Iowa and was expected to know the process. And so for folks, especially immigrants and refugees, people who don't have any sort of background in how the U.S. government works or how state laws are made, I imagine people are feeling pretty left out and confused right now. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to talk to those folks who are feeling lost and confused and want some information in a really accessible way.
Sure, I will talk to if you don't mind us, like maybe I can talk to Ayman and the Center for Worker Justice, and we can share it on Salsa so people can just come and attend it.
Perfect. Yep.
Sure.
And then we do have, we are meeting weekly. Mazahir, I wanted to mention that too, is like for people who are on a more like advocate, like policy analysis strategy level, we are meeting every Friday at 11. during the legislative session until we don't need to anymore. And I did add the CWJ folks to that, and I'll add you to that too.
Sure, please do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It appears as though we have answered questions, fielded comments as we said we would. Again, a huge thank you to Erica and Father Guillermo for joining us, and everybody that's listening live. As you get a recording of the Lunch and Learn session, feel free to share it with others, friends, neighbors, fellow parishioners. Let's hope that the three pass quietly and don't pass at all, to just kind of end without further development. I think that's it for now. We'll see you in a month, but stay safe and stay connected with us. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.